1, 2, 3, 4. Chop, chop, chop.
It's cure of the what now?
Gather the ingredients.
Cure of the what now?
Not much time to prep before it's time to start the show.
Oh!
Guests are arriving.
Cure of the what now?
Everybody's smiling.
Cure of the what now?
A tasty party starting. Now it's time to go. Woo!
Ooh, served hot and fresh.
Itadakimasu! Hello, fellow mentor figures who have emotionally left their protege behind because you just can't stand to see them be heard on your behalf. And welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of
Cure of the what now? Yum.
the one show where we know, even if you are a small fox, you too can become a girl if you just try hard enough. My name is Kat, and I am a very small creature who's trying her best in a world that is simply too large.
Absolutely.
We're getting real today.
I'm your co-host, Joel, and I'm on the lookout for floating animals that are not quite identifiable as a fox or a cat that I'm pretty sure I just saw floating, and that dog just talked.
Did it?
I think so. Oh, nope, it's back to, it's just barking now, so I guess not.
I guess
Also,
maybe you have you're seeing stuff.
It very conspicuously leaned up to this other girl, cupped its paws, and said something into her ear as if it were actually talking, and then the girl asked me a question, but I have no further questions.
That's suspicious. You know, I know we don't have it confirmed.
No, just imagine Pam Pam. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Oh my gosh, Pam Pam is Jean-Ralphio's sister. Now listen, I know it's not confirmed yet, but I'm pretty sure Fua has diabetes, so you easily could have been, I'm just a diabetic who's trying my best to get to the bottom of this mystery. That would have been true.
I guess that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
But we'll get into that in the succinct summary. Joel, it is your turn to give us a lead-in discussion and/or any announcements or pre-show. If you're listening to this, you probably are aware that we didn't record episode 2 when we were supposed to, and now we are doing episode 2 and 3 combined.
Yeah, so the first episode of season 2 came out, and I said that life had been hectic, but it turns out I didn't know what true hecticness was, and so the next week, the week when we should have been recording and editing episode 2 of Cure of the What Now? Yum! We didn't, and so we just decided to combine them into one. So this is the second episode of season 2. We will be covering 2 episodes of Delicious Party, and then we're going to continue to do our best to continue to cover 1 episode of Delicious Party every week from now on. Part of my brain is just anal retentive enough that I want to do like a filler episode somehow, somewhere in there, so that the episode of Delicious Party we're on matches with the episode of the podcast. Which is just best laid plans, because eventually they're going to have a break week and then we're going to be off by 1 again, but...
So we'll do the filler episode when we have the break week, and then we'll be...
I guess that's true. I was thinking we would do the filler episode sometime in the near future, but I think that given my propensity for over-promising and under-delivering, we're gonna let this happen kind of naturally, and if there is a bonus or filler episode, whatever you want to call it, then that'll be a happy surprise, but don't mark your calendars. Don't bet $5,000 that it's going to come out any day now.
Absolutely. But when this episode does go up on time, everybody just give Joel a little round of applause, because he did it, man. He edited the podcast.
Hey, now, the real person who deserves a round of applause is Kat, who wrote another banger opening theme for the season.
Yes, I did it. I was so excited. I was standing in the kitchen and I was like, I've been procrastinating for so long. If I don't have an opening ready when we sit down to record, he's going to eat me with a spoon. But I did it.
Absolutely.
I hope you all like it. Please at me on Twitter and praise me.
Praise me.
That is both a joke based on the episode and a legitimate request.
So here's the thing. You and I have talked a lot about like hypothetical seasons of PreCure, some seriously, some less seriously, and some of them on mic and some of them off mic. So if any of these if they sound familiar, I apologize. But what about a PreCure season that in some way involved mechs?
Oh my god, I love it. Okay, here's what I'm pitching. The fairy becomes the mech. And it's more, so you know how you've got different types of mechs, right? You've got the really huge, clunky, like Gundam-style mechs, and then you've got the mechs that are more like snug to the person. They're more suits of armor.
Yes.
So they're big, but they're still like person shaped. I'm imagining that the fairy wraps around the girl and becomes this suit of armor. And I think that one of the core themes of the show would be embracing new technology versus idolizing the past.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I like it. So I think one of the girls would probably be some kind of like a social media influencer person. I mean, we kind of already have that with like Hinata from Healin' Good, and I think her name is Ran, maybe? But the third mystery girl who we haven't technically met yet, but has been in every episode. So someone who, is on social media all the time and is tweeting and follows all of the big influencers on Instagram and that kind of thing. I also think that you would probably have one mech that was kind of tanky but slow, and maybe had like a really big windup to an attack, but if it lands, it would do impressive damage or whatever. And then you'd probably have another one that was like fast, but would take lots of damage and maybe shot like lots of lasers. They could be like an energetic girl who kind of zips around, who, she's just like, woo, I'm high on Pixie Sticks type of a character, that sort of a thing. And then I think that the main character would have some ability that allows her suit to somehow interact with the other ones. Maybe she has like a connect cable and she can like connect her robot, her mech to another character's mech, and they can combine to create like a new one. And that's like a unique ability that only the pink has.
I love that. That's so cool. What do you envision the villains being like for this season? So
maybe like a... Maybe what they are is they're like, how do I say this? They're kind of like symbiotes that steal other people's technology and corrupt them.
Oh, that's cool too. I was just going to say boomers.
Like exploding zombies, you mean?
No, like old people.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
A quick aside here, not that we've ever done one of those on Care of the Wet Now before. I have worked so hard with our puppy on we don't bark at strangers, we don't bark at other dogs or bicycles or skateboards, and she does amazing. Like, we can go for a walk and she doesn't bark at anything, except for old people. I don't know why. She's never had a bad experience with an old person. I've trained her the same way on elderly people that I have on everything else, and we live in a complex full of them, so she's had plenty of exposure to elderly people. She just doesn't like them.
And she literally will, like, howl sometimes, even though that's not how Australian Shepherds usually bark.
She was carrying a stick once, and she was so happy, and an elderly man stopped and looked at her and went, "Oh, she's carrying her own stick," and she immediately dropped it and went,
Absolutely. What would their motivations be if they were just run-of-the-mill boomers?
They want everything to go back to the way it was when they were young. The world is changing too fast, and they don't believe that it should be.
I think you would want to juxtapose that against one of the characters having like a kindly elder relative, and they could be a little bit like, yeah, sometimes technology is a little confusing, but it looks like it's helping you with school or something like that.
Yeah, you'd have the positive elderly figure who is embracing change, and then you'd have the villains who are opposed to change,
like violently opposed, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And that could have one of our favorite sad PreCure moments in it, where one of the girls might have to leave, and that is a change that you might have to embrace or avoid. So I like this idea for a season a lot. I do like your symbiote idea, though. Symbiotes are cool. And it's kind of a dark mirror of the PreCure having a symbiotic relationship with the fairy who becomes the armor.
Yeah, see? Look at that. Themes, motives,
motifs,
plots. Also motives.
Yeah, sure.
Motifs. Symbolism.
Modus operandi. We're solving murder now.
Don't give away what my next PreCure pitch meeting
I would love a detective PreCure.
Shh, stop. We're going to talk about this later. Stop.
Joke's on you. I'm going to pitch it for next week.
All right. So, let's cover these episodes in order.
Really?
Yeah.
That seems an odd choice to me.
Absolutely. What I meant is one at a time, so we don't get, like, scenes mixed up and that sort of thing. Delicious Party PreCure, Episode 2. Yui is super excited to be a PreCure. She wants everyone to rely on her. Mary Chan gets upset and basically is like, stop taking this so lightly. Like, these are actually dangerous people. You can't just be like, oh, I'll handle it, no problem. And eventually Mari-chan leaves with a note saying basically like, I will handle this on my own. You don't have to worry about it. But it turns out that Mari-chan can't defeat the bad guys on his own. But also, Yui's watch, is it called the Heart watch? No, it's
the Heart Cure watch. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. But it turns out that it can track the recipes. And so she finds Mari-chan in the middle of this battle and is like, I'm going to fight anyways.
Her watch starts pinging. Pee-pee alert! Pee-pee alert!
It does indeed. And so Mari-chan couldn't beat the bad guy on his own, and Yui transforms into Precious, and she tries attacking, and she also can't deal with it. And eventually they realize that Mari-chan was partially feeling down on himself about being inadequate, unable to protect Yui, and Yui was a little green behind the ears, is that the phrase?
Green behind the ears, no.
Green behind the gills.
Yes, but that means sick, I think. Oh. She's new.
English is my first language, but that doesn't mean I can speak it at all, on any level. But anyways, so basically through the power of teamwork, they work together and they come up with a strategy that defeats the bad guy, and they save the recipe. Also, I found out that the Recipe Bon is the book that the recipes go in, or the cookbook that the bad guys have, and there is not another name for these fairies, so I will unfortunately have to call them Recipes on mic and have to hold back a little bit of a giggle every single time.
I refuse to hold back, it's hilarious. Also, I was right, it is the Heart Cure watch.
Okay, I knew it had the word heart in there, but I just couldn't remember.
I like Heart Catch watch.
As a reference to the previous season.
But
the other thing that we find out is, well, not find out, the other development is that Mari-chan has to stay somewhere, but it turns out that Yusuke Urameshi's family has a guest house that can hold people, so Mari-chan's living there, which is right across the street or right next to Yui's house, and then Yui gets to keep Kome Kome as her fox pet.
Because pets are not allowed in the guest house.
In the guest house, yes. And his name isn't Yusuke Urameshi.
Don't ruin the joke.
His name is actually Takumi?
Takumi?
What?
Takumi?
But I think it's really funny to call him Yusuke Urameshi, so I think we're going to continue to call him that.
Absolutely. I look forward to him bringing out his finger guns.
Absolutely. Lastly, we meet a couple more characters. We get officially introduced to the Ku King and the Ku Queen from the Ku Kingdom. It's supposed to be like Cook, but like, I don't know.
Kingdom, yeah.
But there's also an Imperial Guard captain named Fennel, who I believe is the one who like trained Mari-chan and like using the magic beams and stuff like that. I wrote down in our little scratch pad where we keep track of these things as Mari-chan's husband.
Yeah, they're absolutely married. Like, I don't think that is Mari-chan's shisho. I think we're going to meet that character later, and that person probably trained the two of them.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, the intro does show three figures. Mari-chan in the foreground.
Fennel.
Is there a middle ground? But yeah, Fennel in kind of like the middle ground, but then even further back, there's a character in shadow. So.
Absolutely. Also, Fennel points out to Mari, your thing is broken, so you can't come home. Delicious Stone is what it's called. Because everything in this show has to be a food pun, obviously. So I was right. Poor Mari. No go home.
Yeah.
And cannot fight. Like, can't use any of the magic techniques we saw them use in the first episode.
But can create that force field place.
Right. So summoning the force field must be a different type of power. It comes from your heart.
My theory, and this is dumb, but like, what if everyone from the Ku Kingdom has at least like a level 1 ability to cast magic, and the Precious Stone boosts you to like level 10 or something? So casting the field is a very basic spell that anyone can do from the Ku Kingdom with the right training, but like the energy whips that he created in the last episode to hold the monster back, that's a level 10 spell and he can't do it without.
Okay, that would make sense. I like the idea that the things he could have done with the Delicious Stone are going to be attacks that each of the PreCure have.
Yes.
Because we see Yellow using those whips in the opening. And so that means that Mari will be an effective trainer for the girls on how to use their powers.
Absolutely. One thing you have to be careful of, and this is not necessarily PreCure, this is writing advice that I've absorbed through osmosis, but the mentor character theoretically has more power and or knowledge than the character, the mentee, the one being trained. So why is it that the mentee, the protagonist, is the one who saves the day? Why didn't Obi-Wan Kenobi just defeat Darth Vader? And sometimes it's that they're old and that they've lost some of their physical powers. Sometimes there's like a special chosen one.
A lot of the time it's trauma.
Yeah, it could be trauma and that sort of thing. It could be like an emotional connection to the bad guy in some way. And I think that they did a good job with Mari-chan. Mari-chan was a great fighter, but required a tool that they no longer have. So they have the knowledge, but maybe on their own don't have the power. And I like that.
Yeah, I really like Mari being the strategist for the team.
Absolutely.
Like them telling Cure Precious, okay, it's a mid-range fighter, so you need to get in close and don't punch the fucking bombs. Sorry for my language. Poor Mari.
That was such a great moment, though.
Who punches a bomb?
Absolutely.
We also noticed, well, we didn't notice, a friend of the podcast noticed, but Mari-chan's introduction to, I think it's the mom, is a Heart Catch reference.
Is it really?
Yeah, they say something about, like, the beautiful flower that blooms in the garden, rosemary.
That's amazing. So, yeah, we love good references. Also, we usually shout out, like, individual scenes that we like a little bit later after we talk about whether we like this episode, which we conspicuously missed. But Mari-chan is going to be having dinner with Yui's family quite frequently, and Yui's mom and Mari-chan actually exchange beauty tips, because in the last episode, Mari-chan kept trying to tell Yui, and Yui's like, I'm not interested, but Yui's mom is totally there!
So cute. Oh my gosh. Also, real quick, we talked about pronouns for Mari in episode 1. Joel's probably going to keep saying Mari-chan. As a white American person, I feel weird adding a chan onto names when it's not really cultural, so I'm just going to call them Mari. It's the same sort of cute, diminutive nickname, same vibes in our language that you would have adding the chan in Japanese.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because when we were talking about PreCure in the Discord server, link in the YouTube description and also on my Twitter if you want to check it out, but I don't like typing out Mari-chan. I kept referring to him as Mari, but now that I'm talking out loud, it feels weird to just call him Mari. So I don't know. I'll probably alternate between the two.
Much like how I'm going to alternate between he and them pronouns. Like, it really ultimately doesn't matter. It's a fictional character, and whatever your headcanon is, that's valid.
Well, and not only that, but like, he hasn't explicitly said it. So if you had a season or a show where a character was called she and they're like, actually, can you please use they, them, it would feel slightly disrespectful, even though they are fictional characters. But since it hasn't been explicitly stated, who knows?
Use whatever feels right. Did you like this episode?
Yes, I like this episode quite a bit.
Kome Kome is so cute. And that we get more of that in episode 3, somehow, even more. But for an episode that was supposed to be about Mari, Kome really stole the spotlight for me.
I think it's interesting because PreCure isn't always necessarily good at subtlety when it comes to deeper character motivations and such, but when Yui is saying, like, don't worry, I'll handle it, you can see Mari-chan getting slightly angrier, or not, I don't know if angry is the right word, but a little bit more like, oh gosh, what is this small child getting herself into? And that's not clarified until later in the episode, and usually when I see a character have a facial expression, I go, okay, PreCure's written for a younger audience, and I think I know where this is going, but I just somehow didn't quite get that this time.
Gotcha.
How about you? Did you like this episode?
I did, yeah, it was very cute. I like Rosemary as a character. I feel like it's very easy to have, A, the mentor character, but B, a kind of gender non-conforming character. I feel like it's very easy to have those be very flat and two-dimensional. Mm-hmm. And I like that Mari takes pride in this rescuing the Recipipis being their job. It's not the PreCure's job. They were sent to do this. And so to have Cure Precious get hurt because Mari was inadequate to do his job, it makes sense that would be hurtful and that they would want to do something about it. Yeah. And so I really like them as a character. I'm looking forward to seeing where they go. And it's cool to see that they can be serious. They're not always just kind of the goofy, flamboyant character. I felt that it's interesting. Sometimes you can get a new scene with a character and it can add to what they were like before. Sometimes it feels like it's a completely different character. And for a little while, it kind of felt like
Mary from first episode and second episode were a little bit different, but we're in a different situation, right? In the first one, it was an unknown situation. This time, he knows that he has the PreCure, but he's worried that the PreCure will get hurt. So, yeah, no, that's excellent. I did write down one quote from this episode that I really, really like, and it was, "What's strongest in the world is your heart trying to help someone else." That is advice that Yui was given when she was a small child. It turns out that Yui has always wanted to protect, like, small animals or injured animals and that sort of thing, which definitely isn't one of the two co-hosts of the show right now.
I was gonna say, it's not so much advice as it is Yui's grandma describing her specifically.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Although I like it as an idea that could be applied to anyone, like, you doing for others is strongest in this world.
I guess it's not necessarily advice, but yeah, it's a life perspective that resonates in the present day with Mari-chan and kind of helps them resolve the small conflict that they're having with each other.
Absolutely. But I really love Yui as the caretaking figure.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about food, that is one of the things that comes to mind for me. I love to bake, and so a lot of the time, if somebody is having a hard time, or I want to just, like, show them I love them, I'll bake them something. I bake cakes for work and for my parents and everybody, and so that is part of being a caretaker for me. Like Joel kind of alluded to, this I have to rescue every small creature that needs love and care and feeding is also part of my core personality.
It is amazing how animals in anime, or even live action, can tug at the heartstrings so effectively. She gets this small cat who doesn't want to eat at first and doesn't want to be her friend, and my heart just breaks, even though it's fictional characters and obviously the cat's going to be fine. And then eventually when the cat takes Yui's toy that she offers, yeah, go Yui, you rehabilitated that cat.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Do you have anything else you want to call out from this episode?
There's a couple of things really quickly. So Takumi, the Yusuke Urameshi character, he isn't sure if he recognizes Mari. And Mari sees Takumi and be like, "Have we met before?" And he goes, "I'm not sure." So the mystery deepens.
I think that was a lie.
Yeah?
I think that Yusuke Urameshi absolutely recognized Mari, and then when Mari was like, "Have we met?" Yusuke was like, "No, man. No, I don't know you."
Yeah, something is going to happen with Takumi, and if he's not the what's his name from Sailor Moon? If he's not the Tuxedo Mask analogy, I will be blown out of the water, because he's in every episode. He's in the opening. He's the only character who's about the right height and age to be this Tuxedo Mask character.
Watch this show pull a absolute 180 on us, and Gentle is a boy once they are no longer
with
a villain
or whatever.
Yeah, and Gentle is the Tuxedo Mask.
Oh my god, that would be amazing. But yeah, there's definitely a mystery here going on. I like the idea that he's lying, but I also kind of like the idea of these two not, like, kind of recognizing each other, but not really. So maybe there's, like, some weird memory magic stuff going on, or maybe it happened so long ago that, like, the truth is deep in their heart, but maybe their brain can't quite recall all of the details. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is that when I was rewatching the first episode to get the sticker sheet, the screenshots that would go in the thumbnail or whatever, I noticed that kind of like Yui and Kome Kome has like compassion as the strength of character. So the first thing Kome Kome sees Yui do, or the first interaction they have, is Yui feeding her, and then Kome Kome's like, "Oh," and without talking, but like, "Oh, this person's collapsed," and Yui's like, "I'll take care of it," and that kind of is like what gets Kome's hard to do the badump kind of like, oh, maybe she and I could become PreCure together kind of a thing. And so I wrote this question before we got the next episode, which, spoiler alert, has one of the other energy fairies. But do you think the other two girls will similarly be compassionate, or do you think each of them will get a key trait that's different?
I think they'll have a key trait. That seems kind of on brand for PreCure. And also, it leads to interesting stories when you can have one person's traits clash with another person's traits.
Or reinforce. Kind of
right, and they both get to recognize their own strengths. You do what you can do, and I'll do what I can do. What I can do.
So it seems most obvious that the rich girl that we saw in the first episode and the ramen delivery girl we saw in the first episode are probably the other two PreCure. because they're in the opening, but also they've shown up in every episode that we've seen so far.
Obsessed with Ramen Girl.
Yes. What do you think might be their character traits, or do you not have enough information?
So Yui is kindness.
Yes.
I think Yellow is probably going to be energy or spirit or passion. She really cares about things.
Kind of like Joy or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And then Blue could be wisdom.
Oh, okay.
She takes a kind of measured, thoughtful approach to things. She could be temperance.
Oh, I also really like her as potentially, this isn't the right word as a character trait, but like insight. Like she maybe empathy kind of a thing. Like she can see someone and kind of like figure out what it is that they need. Whereas Yui's like, I'll give you rice. You know, she takes a more like tailored approach.
Yui will be kind to you, but she can figure out exactly what it is you're missing.
She Sherlock Holmes it. She looks at you and she goes, I can clearly tell that this person prefers white sauce to red sauce. Therefore, instead of a...
I want to talk more about Fua, so let's get into the next episode. Do you have a sweet, succinct summary for me?
Oh, yes. I have a delicious, succinct summary for you.
Oh!
So, at the beginning of the episode, Yui needs to buy carrots because she is going to make curry for the family tonight. And then the second energy fairy wakes up, and it's Pam Pam. Pam Pam the dog. She's adorable. She can also talk, which we find out that all energy fairies can eventually talk, but I guess it's like an age thing because Kome Kome is like the youngest. And so...
Pam Pam explicitly says, because I'm an adult, and I want to know if that was her bragging, kind of like how a 15-year-old will be like, I'm an adult.
Oh, sure.
Or
like,
if she's actually...
like how an 8th grader might like talk down to the 7th graders, like, I'm older than you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But Pam Pam can talk, Kome Kome cannot, and Pam Pam knows all about the Heart Cure watch, and she's like, this is what this function does, and this is what this function does, and this is how you send feet pics. I'm sorry.
Wouldn't they be paw pics?
Oh my god, yes. But anyways, Kome Kome gets a little jealous. Kome Kome feels like they're not getting enough love. She's not getting enough love. So she decides she's going to go out and buy those carrots on her own. She has a hard time with it.
Did you mention the carrots earlier in the succinct summary?
Yeah, well, okay. I said Yui was going to make curry tonight. She doesn't have carrots, so she writes them down.
Right.
So Kome Kome, to like try to
she steals Mari's wallet.
She takes the wallet and the to-do list in a basket. She gets a little lost, a little overwhelmed, and she runs into the blue girl, who we find out is Fua Kokone. And I believe first name Fua, last name Kokone. She's the rich girl. She helps this creature buy some carrots, but then the creature disappears, and she thinks she sees the creature fly over something, and she goes, did it just float? She sees Pam Pam, who clearly says, have you seen Kome Kome? And she goes, did that thing just talk? And then she goes, ruff, 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 ruff! And I guess that's enough to convince Fua that this is just a normal dog, and she was just hearing things.
Really quick, Kokone means heart sound, and Fua means soft or fluffy. So soft heart sound. Maybe she has heart problems. And we'll get to why I think that at the end of this succinct summary, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. Yui runs into this girl and basically says, hey, have you seen a pink fox flying around? Not flying around. Have you seen a pink fox around? And she goes, oh, yeah, over there. They find out that the bad guys are stealing the curry recipe, and so they kind of like, we need Kome Kome, and then we need to save the day. Yusuke Urameshi has found the fox creature, is like, hey, here's your fox creature. And she goes, great, I need to go save the world, bye! And she runs off, and he's like, that was weird. And then they fight the bad guy, and they save the day, and they are very thankful that Kome Kome tried to get the carrots or whatever. And then... at the end of the episode, Kome Kome evolves into a small human child.
She's a little baby!
Yeah, like I said last episode, you see these different forms in the opening, and I would guess like probably like 2 to 3 in terms of age.
Mm-hmm. She's so cute.
She's very cute.
We're pretty sure we don't want children, but baby Kome Kome was cute enough that I was like, maybe. The problem is that no human child would actually be a magical fox.
When a mommy and a daddy love each other very much, sometimes a stork comes and delivers a small magical fox that can also transform into a human child.
It's nice when your human child can turn back into a small fox, because then they fit in the kennel.
Well, and also if they're magical fox, you could just put them in the heart catch, or the heart, god dang it. The
Heart PreCure watch.
Heart PreCure watch. Did you like this episode?
I'm going to say yes and no.
Okay.
You know how sometimes we refer to movies or TV or whatever as sadness porn, where like they're just making you feel bad for no reason. Mm-hmm. I kind of felt that way about this episode. Like Kome Kome broke my heart every time she was on screen.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily unnecessary. Necessarily unnecessary, but it still made me sad.
Yeah, so if you've ever watched BoJack Horseman, and if you're in the target demographic for PreCure, BoJack Horseman is not for you. It's for a different audience. But I assume that a lot of our listeners are older and adults and able to watch that kind of show without brain rot or whatever. But they have an episode where BoJack is trying to write his own autobiography. I guess autobiography always means your own. But he's trying to write his own biography, and he basically leaves out all of his flaws. And when you read it, it sounds really bad. And he's like, why is this so bad? And everyone's like, that's because you need some of like the negatives in there in order for the positives to contrast. So I think you did need Kome Kome to be a little sad. Otherwise, why is she going to get the carrots or whatever? But it was heartbreaking, and I hope that we don't get more sad Kome Kome episodes. I hope that she now feels appreciated.
Absolutely. I like that Yui was like, oh, Kome Kome, you tried so hard. Good job. And then they all made curry together. It was a very cute episode. I'm really interested in Fua as a character. Speaking of sad scenes for no reason, at the end of the episode, our main team so far is all eating curry together, and they're laughing and smiling and having fun. And it's the actual voiceover says, eating together is so much fun, or something like that.
Yeah, the mysterious older woman who might be Yui's grandma from Beyond the Grave. Anyways.
But then it zooms over to Fua's house, and Fua is eating a very sad-looking meal all by herself.
She's eating a really well-cooked meal, but yeah, she's the only one at the table, and it's like, oh.
She had like 2 carrots next to her steak. But yeah, it broke my heart, and she's in a very austere kitchen. There's not like stuff on the walls, and everything is very white and smooth. She looks like she's living in a hotel, basically. And as much as I love minimalism, it does not give warm, comfy vibes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am kind of interested. So I liked this episode, I would say. Kome Kome is adorable, and I think this further, evolved her character. I find it interesting that we finally have a scene where Fua actually interacts with the other characters, because in episode 1, she just happened to see Yui almost crash into the yellow girl. I think her name is Ran. I'm going to just... Ramen Delivery Driver is the best name for her. And in the last in episode 2, while Yui was running to fight the bad guys, she almost runs into Fua, who's coming out of like a convenience store or something. She's like, I gotta go, and she keeps running. But in this episode, Fua actually like meets Yui. They introduce themselves to each other. She meets Mary-chan. And also she sees the girls go into the energy field, and then she passes out. We'll put a pin in that. And then when she wakes up, Cure Precious is there, scoops her up in a bridal carriage and goes, I'll take you home, and then just like superhero jumps through the sky to take her home. I'm
on Yui Fua train. Which means
Fui! F-U-I! That's the ship name!
Which means that Yellow and Gentle.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. There is also a really interesting scene. I am fascinated by how their previous PreCure seasons that we've watched have very much so gone basically one of 2 routes. Either the girls already know each other before they become PreCure, or once one character becomes PreCure, they basically meet the character 2 minutes before they're going to transform into their own PreCure character. But what you have here is 3 episodes. First one mostly about Yui, I would argue. Second one mostly about Mary-chan. And third one mostly about Kome Kome. And every single episode has Yusuke Urameshi, Ramen Noodle Girl, or Ramen Delivery Girl, and Fua. But they're not really interacting with Yui in any meaningful way. Well, Yusuke is a bit, but...
Yusuke is mostly yelling at
yeah.
Yui.
But, like, they all exist, and they all kind of have their own little stories, and they aren't just oh, I met Yui, now I'm a PreCure, or the tuxedo mask analogy. And I do really like that.
I appreciate the breathing room a lot. Sometimes it can get to feeling a little formulaic because this is a show with a pretty strict formula designed to sell toys. And so I think that after the last 2 seasons where they had to play it really safe because they were worried about COVID interrupting broadcasting again, now they can kind of play with the formula a little bit more. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they continue to affect this. I wonder if, for example, after we get a Cure Spicy introduction, if we will get an episode just about Pam Pam.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The one thing the reason I brought up Ramen Noodle Girl and Fua in episode 3 is because Ramen Girl seems to be kind of the Instagram person. She takes a picture of her food before she eats it, and she keeps going to the restaurants for the recipes for someone from, like, what bad luck she has. But in this episode, when Gentilu does her mysterious I'm in the shadows about to steal the food thing, and the recipe bee gets stuck in the tornado, the whatever.
The bento suck.
Don't call it that! Do not call it that!
Too late, can't tell it anything else.
But, when the recipe bee starts to get sucked up, she actually kind of has, like, a moment where she, like, clearly, like, something's wrong, but then she goes back to her food, so I think she's, like, sort of developing her spirit sense, her ability to see the recipe bee, and each episode we've seen her, she's gotten better at detecting them.
I love that.
That's my theory.
I also adore the way that she takes the picture of her food, but then she sets the phone aside and says, I'll post it later. Like, she's very focused on her food, and I think that's cool. It is a very small piece of character writing, but what it tells you about her as a person is that the food is more important to her than the social media posts.
Absolutely. But she still has to take the picture before she starts eating, because otherwise you show them an empty plate and it's like, the chef put all that work into the presentation.
We went to a really nice restaurant a while ago, and I got halfway through my food and I went, damn it, I wanted to take a picture. It was so beautiful. And Joel goes, well, you could order another one. And I was like, I'm not doing that just for a picture. We'll come back.
Oh, man. That was a genius idea. I should have written that one down. Just order 2, and one is to be framed on the wall, and the other one is for actual consumption.
We donate it afterward.
Absolutely. The one thing that I want to talk about from this episode, and I've kind of already alluded to this, but how long until someone figures out that Yui is Cure Precious? Because people keep going to restaurants in a town full of famously delicious food. The food mysteriously starts tasting bad, and then I presume that at a later point they realize that the food is tasting good again, although we haven't explicitly seen that scene. But when the food starts tasting bad, Yui and Rosemary start acting weird. Sometimes they just disappear from reality for a little bit, and I really do wonder if we're going to have a character who figures out the PreCure thing who's not supposed to know, and my guess is Yusuke Urameshi.
I guarantee you around episode 7, 8, or 9, when I imagine Yusuke Urameshi will actually join the team for real, he will reveal that he's known this whole time and he was waiting for Yui to stop being an idiot and just say something to him.
I will say,
why didn't you say something sooner, Yusuke? It's none of my business, idiot.
He's not that mean. He's more of like the indifferent kind of cool character rather than...
I like playing up the slight bullying.
That's true.
Also, earlier I said I was on the Yui Fua train, the Fui train. If you are on the Yui Yusuke Urameshi train, just remember, she's got 2 hands, guys.
Yuiski.
Yui Urameshi.
But, yeah... he's a really interesting character, and I hope that he goes places once he becomes part of the team or whatever. In superhero shows or superhero media, the reason that superheroes keep their identities secret is because if the bad guy knew that they were actually Peter Parker, then they would know to be able to target Gwen Stacy type of a thing. But I can't see the bad guys kidnapping Yui's mom if they know that Yui is Precious. And most bad guy generals do know who their human counterparts are. So I've never quite understood why they have to keep their identity a secret in PreCure. But I'm all for having characters who know and are kind of like the oracle or the whatever to their bat family.
I think Fresh kind of explicitly answered that. Their parents found out they were superheroes and told them no.
I guess that's true. But then they changed their mind and said yes, so I don't know. But
I think that the age of the girls in PreCure, and to a certain extent, the age of the demographic, it's when you start to develop your own identity outside of your parents and your family. And so there is a big part of being that age is, this is just for me. It's private. I don't want to share it with the family. And it's not even like a secret keeping thing. It's just it belongs to me.
Yeah.
And so I think some of that is going in there. But I also just think it's the trope of superheroes don't tell people their identities. They just don't.
Yeah. That's the angle I was coming from, was more like, I think they do it just because you see it in other media. But no, your explanation makes more sense. And as always, the one of us who is more involved in human psychology better understands that kind of the development and stuff like that.
I did get my minor in human development, and the child psychology class was one of my favorites. Like, it's really fascinating looking at identity formation and that piece of our development.
Speaking of child psychology and child development, Kome Kome. So I have a couple of questions about this evolution thing. How do you think the journey will end? So we've seen in the opening that she seems to go through a couple of different phases of development, and I really wish they hadn't put that in the opening. But like, when she gets to her quote-unquote final form, where I assume that she's a girl about Yui's age, will she become her own PreCure? Will she have a magical power?
Oh, I love Cure Kome as an idea.
I guess, yeah, I just assume that there's going to be something that happens at that point.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because Pam Pam says it looks like Kome Kome became a human because she wants to be like you, Yui. Mm-hmm. So she's going to be like the little sister character.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if endgame for Kome Kome, she stays in the human world and we see her becoming the next generation of PreCure.
Oh, okay. Kind of like another season. Mm-hmm. So I'd really like that. I'm very curious what it means narratively for her to become more human or whatever. I wonder if the other two fairies will also do that once they've officially bonded with their humans, because Pam Pam and Fua had a moment, and like clearly there was some kind of like sort of spiritual or fate brought us together connection moment, but they haven't officially become PreCure together yet. My other question: how is Yui going to explain this to her mom?
My guess is that Kome Kome has to expend energy to take human form, and so she'll turn back into a fox, and Yui won't have to explain it to mom right away. Eventually, I don't know, maybe this is Mari's little sister?
Yeah, Kome Kome ran away from home. Don't look for her. I think she's safe. Also, here's Mary Chan's little sister, who he's never mentioned before.
Who has fox ears.
Who has fox ears and is also named Kome Kome. Don't worry about it, Mom. It's nothing. I'm not a superhero.
Oh, it's a good thing parents in these shows aren't observant. You know, like, if this were my mom would have known I was hiding something the second I walked in the door after turning into a PreCure.
Yeah. Well, and again, I know that we, the audience, notice connections that other people don't, kind of like how anytime Bruce Wayne is out of town, Batman is also out of town. That's kind of weird. But you would think that the food starting to taste bad only is a recent phenomenon. And Mary's a recent phenomenon, and he doesn't really talk about his family much or where he's from, and
watch the villagers gang up on Mari to try to chase them out of town. You're a witch who cast a spell on our food using your gender magic.
Oh my gosh, and with that, I think we're done with Delicious Party. Let's move on to Max Heart.
Really quick, before we move on, we did have a couple of things that we missed. We kind of took a break from recording, and we remembered them, so...
Oh gosh, we forgot to talk about Kokone and her disability, possibly.
Yes. So, right as Rosemary, I forgot their name. How did I forget Mari-chan's name? Right as Mari-chan and Yui are entering the distortion field, Fua appears to become faint, and she kind of falls over. And then when they come out and they see her sitting there on the ground, she says, like, I've got to get home, in kind of a weak voice.
Wait. Fua was in a weakened state. Someone get her some Star Donuts.
Yes. So the initial theory I kind of put forth is maybe she's a type 1 diabetic and her blood sugar got low.
Absolutely.
It's also possible she has a heart condition. So her name, Fua Kukone, if you look up kind of the meanings, Fua is soft or fluffy and Kukone is heart sound. So soft heart sound, that sounds like a heart murmur to me.
See, that's very interesting because when you were describing that earlier, my first thought was that it just means that her story is probably that she's kind of timid and she's going to become more assertive, and so she has kind of like a soft heart sound. But I mean, yeah, she needs to go, and maybe she passed out from something. So yeah, it would be interesting to see if she has like special needs in terms of food. And I mean, type 1 diabetes or something like that, or hypoglycemia, or even a heart condition could potentially feed into that. I saw some people on the PreCord server saying that they wish that they addressed like allergy potentiality, but I don't think food allergies necessarily cause someone to become faint like that.
Absolutely. Seeing a PreCure in person might cause you to feel faint.
Absolutely.
No, and I mean, we haven't seen every season of PreCure, just the first episode, so it's possible that there is a disabled cure in a previous season that we just missed, but I feel like this would be the first, so that would be cool to have disabled cure representation.
Absolutely.
I do feel as though chronic illnesses like diabetes and heart conditions count as disabilities. I know some people with those conditions don't consider them disabilities, and some people do. So if you don't, that's fine.
Just any, like, yeah. When you say disability in this case, you mean something that's like a lifelong thing that's not really going to change about them. You know, most people in a wheelchair aren't going to be able to walk unless they're in a very specific kind of condition.
It interferes with your daily living and creates barriers to doing all the things you want to do. Also, I wonder if she does have one of those two conditions we mentioned, if she will still have it as a PreCure, and that will be a barrier to her fighting. Like mid-fight, she gets dizzy and has to stop. Or if becoming a superhero gets rid of everything human about you.
Absolutely. Also, shame on you. We've had a character who had a chronic illness throughout the entire season. Her name was Hana, I think. The healing good girl.
Oh, yeah.
Except it never really came up. Except for in 2 episodes.
She was more recovered from an illness.
That's true.
But yeah, no, I feel like Healing Good really could have been the place to explore that, and that season just suffered from the coronavirus shutting everything down.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also one other detail I forgot to mention. It's not relevant in these episodes, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be relevant in future episodes. At the end of the episode where Mari and Yui had their kind of like pseudo breakup and then they became closer at the end of the episode, Mari gifts Yui a kind of champagne glass looking item. And he says that this is like a token of friendship and people of the Ku Kingdom gift this to friends. So my prediction, even though we're not in looking ahead, but my prediction is he's going to become closer to the other two Kiors once they get introduced, and they will each get their own glass, and their team attack will in some way use it. And the reason for that is because it's displayed prominently in the ending, all the girls are holding it, and then also it's PreCure. That looks like a merchandisable item to me, so...
It certainly does. And I think that is all of our delicious party
Absolutely.
thoughts. Moving on to Max Heart. Give me a succinct summary for Max Heart Episode 2.
Max Heart Episode 2. Did you see Futari Wa? It's Futari Wa again. No, that was last week's episode. The Nagisa and Honoka see this mystery girl again, and they find out that her name is Hikari Kujou, and maybe she's related to PreCure in some way. They seem to not realize that her first name literally means light, and they're looking for the Queen of Light who's been reborn into a human figure. But, you know, we the viewers have kind of noticed. But she's showing up everywhere. She's working at the takoyaki. Right, I was about to say teriyaki. That's a different thing. The takoyaki stand with Akane, the senpai of Nagisa and Honoka, and then she's also been transferred to the school. She's a year below them in grade. And that's basically it. This new bad guy shows up. He's a Dracula-looking mofo, and he shows up to the manor with the child that we saw last episode, who actually is showing more emotion. I thought he was going to be kind of one of those, like, creepily no emotions children, like just absolutely nothing surprises them, nothing angers him, nothing. But no, he's a kid. He's like running around having fun with his Zakenna butlers.
The Zakenna butlers are the best dads.
Sure. And then Dracula shows up and he goes, hey, we're here to serve you. Also, there's a bunch of other shadowy figures, a cabal, if you will, that the PreCure will have to defeat.
Oh, it's a rogues gallery. We love a good rogues gallery.
Absolutely.
We also find out the Heartiel they found in last week's episode is named Sikun, and she is the Heartiel of curiosity. She wants to know about all the things.
Yeah, so she like goes up to a mirror and she's like, what's this? And she goes up to like Nagisa and she's like, who are you? And that's just what she does. She disappears partway through the episode because she's seeking the Queen of Light, and so they spend some time looking for her. And then at the end of the episode, Sikun just kind of shows up again next to Nagisa and is like asking questions. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's you.
I think we can all agree that the best part of this season so far is all of the different characters going, Queen! I really like it. I can't tell you why.
Interesting.
But Sikun saying, like, Queen was very cute.
Yeah.
Do you like this episode?
It was all right.
Yeah, it was fine.
I like that each of the keys actually have an individual personality. In the first season of Futariwa, there were just 7 prism stones, and they didn't seem to really have any special abilities. Oh gosh, could you imagine a PreCure where they had the Infinity Stones, but they were heart gems? But in this season, it looks like they're going to put some time into characterizing the keys by giving each one of them their one trait that they embody. And it appears to be like different aspects of like the mind of the queen, so I wonder if one of them is going to be like queenly wisdom and one of them is going to be like kindness or something.
Yeah, one of them could be ruin, one could be preservation.
Laughter and generosity and magic makes it all complete.
My little PreCure. Anyway.
So
that's about all I have to say about Max Heart.
Gosh, I wish there was more to talk about.
I still like it better than Futariwa, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I'm interested to see where this goes, but we're still in kind of like the beginning stages. And this isn't even like other seasons of PreCure where the first couple of episodes are learning about the characters, because we already have met Elder and Wisdom and Nagisa and Honoka. So, we'll see where it goes. We did receive a YouTube comment on our last episode where we commented on how Max Heart looks better, and we said, oh, I think Verve has like the VHS quality videos. And so Conrado Javier, my apologies if I mispronounced that, but they said that actually Crunchyroll updated the OG PreCure's quality last year, but Tubi maintains the crappy VHS version.
That's interesting.
We watched Futariwa on Verve, which is, it hosts the Crunchyroll quality sites, I believe, or Crunchyroll videos, I believe. And so we saw what I believe is the highest quality, and it still is remarkably
It's
downgraded.
crunchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's cool, though, that they updated it. I feel like now that somebody says something, I remember that being a thing on Twitter when it happened, because we follow a couple of people who specifically are Futariwa fans. Not all of PreCure, specifically Futariwa. But that just totally slipped our mind. So thank you for leaving a comment. We appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
But no, I wish I had more to say about Max Heart.
Do you want to talk about sweet, sweet, pretty cute?
I do. I want to rock out to Sweet PreCure.
All right.
So as usual, I have a succinct summary that is 1 sentence long. Hibiki hates music, but not really. To give a more or a less succinct summary.
She hates her dad, but not really.
When she was young, I believe they said like in elementary school, so, fairly young, probably like, somewhere between like 6 and 10, she performed at a concert, and she really wanted to play really well, and she thought she did great, and then her dad basically was like, your heart wasn't in it, babe, that kind of sucked, and she was heartbroken, so she never really wanted to do music again.
Yeah, he specifically said, you aren't playing the music, and she was like, I played that perfectly, what the F are you talking about, old man?
Yeah, so, it sucks when your parent is harsh and critical, and when you think you did a good job, and you just want to make them happy, and they're like, that didn't make me happy at all. It also turns out that he's also the music teacher at the school, which is kind of cool. And he apparently gives this advice to a lot of people who play music. They'll play, and they'll play really well, and you'll be like, you weren't playing the music. And they're like, what does that mean? And he goes, it's a personal journey that you have to go on. If I told you the answer, it wouldn't be any fun or whatever. There's a concert with a couple of his other students, and Hibiki gets kind of dragged there. Kanade, the entire episode, is trying to help Hibiki reconnect with music. It's very important because Hibiki seemed to like it a long time ago. And then the bad guys attack. Of course they do. And the dad actually stands up to the monster, I can't remember, the negatone, and is basically like, you're not really playing the music. I will defend the music. And Hibiki realizes that what he's been saying this entire time is that you need to enjoy the music. You need to put your heart and soul into it. So she was playing out of a sense of duty, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. They defeat the bad guy, and now Hibiki likes music a little bit better. Yeah.
I think what he was trying to say was, like, people can see whether or not you're having fun playing the music, and that affects their enjoyment of your playing. So even if you're technically perfect, if you're visually uncomfortable and upset, that diminishes the quality.
You need the heart.
You need the heart. Also, Dad confirmed for PreCure the negatone doesn't work on people with strong enough spirits.
Yeah, I suppose that could be it.
I feel for Hibiki. I cannot imagine. I love my dad, but I cannot imagine if my dad was some genius musician who taught at my school.
Absolutely. We saw Hibiki's mom, who we haven't seen in present time, and I think she's like a world famous like dancer or something. She's something related to kind of the music or the performance arts, and I think she's over in Paris. So she hasn't been Disney'd, but she might show up in a later episode. PreCure's usually pretty good about not having dead parents. Usually they're just overseas. There's a convention for all of the parents of PreCure to just hang out. You have Honeka's parents, you have Nagisa, or not Nagisa, you have Hibiki's mom.
You remember that time in friggin' Kira PreCure when we thought Ichika's mom was going to be important, and then she was just there, and then she was gone again? It was great.
Huh. Is this a Kira PreCure episode podcast?
No, okay. This is not.
Okay.
So I suppose we can continue talking about Sweet.
Did you like this episode?
Yeah, it was cute. I liked the next episode better.
I like this episode okay. I do agree that the tension between Hibiki and her dad is, relatable. I think that everyone at some point disagrees with their parents about something or has, a minor fight or something. And it's not exactly... Like, Hibiki lives with her dad every day, and so when Kanade and Hummy, almost called Hummy Nemi, which is the name of our cat, not the fairy cat, but when they're kind of like, come on, man, I'm sure his intentions are good, like, it's hard to be an outsider and convince someone who's on the inside of that situation to see it from a different perspective. But
absolutely.
Good on them for trying to help Hibiki out of her funk, but...
Yep, the example from real life that comes to mind for me, and I promise someday I might not be salty about this anymore, but in the 4th grade, we were learning about transition words in essays, and I wrote an essay and I thought it was really good, and my dad used to just, write essays for fun, not even to submit to anything. He just liked to write about stuff. And I showed him this paper and I was like, what do you think of my very good essay? And he read it and he went, well, this is very childish, using, the first, second, third like this. Instead, you should do transition sentences, so each paragraph leads smoothly into the next paragraph. Rewrite it like this. And I went, I don't think so. My teacher wants us to use transition words. And he went, no, rewrite it like this. I guarantee you'll get 100%. And if you don't, I'll take you out to dinner or something. I got a 93%, and the only comment was, you didn't use transition words.
The parents.
They have legs.
Oh, goodness.
I don't know if you have a similar moment with your parents where you thought they'd be impressed with you and then they weren't.
No, I can't remember anything like that. I was traumatized at Disneyland. Yeah, the one in California. I was looking for a very specific autograph book to get the autographs of, Pluto and Princess Jasmine and all that stuff. And I was the one to find it because it was like me and my mom and a couple of cousins and stuff. And we all kind of split up to look for him. And I found it. And I was like, Mom, I found it. Check it out. And she was like, oh my gosh. And she picked it up. It was the last one. And she turns to my cousin and gives it to him. And I was like, oh, cool.
That was for me, mother.
Yeah, it turns out that they had been looking for an autograph book the entire time that we'd been there, and I just hadn't
And they
known.
also had like a gift card or something, right?
I
That was
think
like
so.
specifically the cost of that.
I was like 4. I was older than 4, but it was so long ago that I hardly remember. But I distinctly remember like feeling like, oh, this moment.
Yes, but the salt aimed at our parents from an incident in our youth is very relatable. Thank you, Hibiki.
Absolutely.
Hibiki for most relatable cure so far, I think.
Maybe next episode will change your mind about that.
Oh, maybe it will. I distinctly remember halfway through this episode you going, oh no, if we talk about this on mic, it's gonna start a fight. So let's go. Give me that succinct summary.
Yes. Sweet, pretty cute. Episode 4, Kanade makes good cakes, except when she doesn't. So, the bad cat, what is her name?
Siren.
Siren? Okay, I wanted to call her Discord. That's the guy who's howling at the moon.
No, he's the guy who makes other people howl at the moon.
Oh, I see. He turns us into furries. So Kanade... Okay, so Kanade has been making cakes for a very, very long time. I think her mom is a baker, maybe? Or maybe
her parents own a bakery.
That's right. Okay, yeah, her parents own a bakery, and she's super proud of her cake baking skills. There's a contest coming up to see who can make the best cake, and she wants to enter. Hibiki constantly eats all of Kanade's cakes and is just like, this is pretty good. And she doesn't really have like detailed feedback. You know, Kanade's like, how's the texture? How's the aftertaste? Does the sweetness and the bitterness balance? And Hibiki's basically just like, yep, this is a cake. Siren figures out that the two girls can only become PreCure if their hearts are in resonance. And so she decides, the best way to defeat them is to make them not happy with each other. Actually, Siren, the best way to solve it is to kill one or both of them. But having them not be friends with each other, that makes much more sense for a children's cartoon. So
How's Siren gonna kill anyone with those little kitty paws?
She can transform into a person holding a gun.
Do you think that she's ever learned to use a gun? She's got little kitty paws.
But anyways, so it turns out that she can shapeshift, and she turns into this world-famous chef who is going to be one of the judges at this competition, and she, quote-unquote, just so happens to run into Kanade, and is like, oh, can you show me the cakes that you're making? And she eats a cake, and she goes, this is pretty good, but what if you tried something completely different, something that didn't taste as good? And Kanade makes this new cake, and it looks very good, but it's made with different ingredients, and the next day, she tries giving a piece to Hibiki, and Hibiki goes, this isn't quite as good as your other cakes. I prefer your regular cakes, the kinds that you normally make. And Siren had predicted that this might be how Hibiki would respond, and so she had the previous day told Kanade, like, Hibiki's just jealous that she can't make cakes, and she just takes you for granted, and she doesn't really value you as a friend, she just wants you for the sweets that you provide. So Kanade gets really upset, and is like, how dare you, you're just jealous, blah, 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 blah. And then I can't remember exactly what happens, but bad guys show up, and then Kanade and Hibiki have to, like, fight, and I think Kanade's having like a conflict. She's like, oh no, my cakes are bad. And then Hibiki's like, I love Kanade's cakes. I love them so much. I think she should continue to make the cakes that make her happy. And then they reconcile and they win the day.
Yeah. So, did you like this episode?
I did, but part of me doesn't really like the bad guys put on a barely a disguise, and the main characters can't catch on. The trio of the trio of singers, I guess, that work for the bad guys put on little pastry hats, and they're still singing in their way, and they still have bright pink, bright yellow, or whatever their hair colors are. And Kanade's like, do I recognize them? And Siren has to quickly be like, anyways, we're moving on to the next thing. But I just feel like Kanade should have been able to figure that out.
Absolutely. So I love the moment when Kanade has, all of these carefully prepared desserts. They're all beautiful. Each of them is intricately decorated.
She's about to call me out.
And she sets them down in front of Hibiki, and Hibiki tries to just start shoveling them in her mouth. And Kanade goes, no, wait. First, take in the way they look. That's an important part of taste. We are visual creatures. What do you think of the decorations? And Hibiki's like, I want to eat them. I want to eat them. I want to eat them. I don't care what they look like. And Hibiki's like, okay, take a bite and savor the flavor. And by the time she's done trying to explain this, Hibiki has just devoured the cakes. And Hibiki goes, none of that really matters. It's all good. It's all fine. And Kanade throws a bit of a tantrum over the word fun, which may be a little relatable. And then, that kind of sets the rest of the thing in motion. So I mentioned earlier in this episode that I'm a baker, and I do a lot of experimentation with flavors and textures and all of that. And often I will hand things to Joel and I will go, what do you think of this? And he'll go, I like it. And I'll go, do you like it better or worse than last time? And he'll go, I like it. And I'll go, yeah, but what do you think of the texture? And he'll go, I like it.
If Kat makes delicious scalloped potatoes with cheese on them. Are scalloped potatoes the ones that always have cheese?
Yes.
Okay. She makes scalloped potatoes. She makes them, in February, and I eat them and I go, these are good. There's potatoes and they're cheesy and the cheese sauce is creamy and the potatoes are crispy. And then in March, she makes scalloped potatoes and she's add garlic pepper instead of onion pepper from last time. And there's the cheese sauce and there's the crispy potatoes. And she goes, do you like this better or worse? My brain only really remembers, basic details, and it's they're both cheesy potatoes. Yes, I like them. I don't have any specific feedback.
So what the advice I would give to Kanade, I suppose, as a fellow highly refined pâtissier, is just go find some food critics who do this professionally.
Yeah.
If you are baking to see somebody smile, then you don't really need specific feedback as long as they're smiling.
That's true. I will say there was a really cute moment when Kanade was trying to figure out what she should do about this competition and whether her new cake is better or whether her old cake was better. And she sees her dad bake a new cake and he's really excited and the mom tries it and she's like, oh, it's so delicious. He goes, oh, that makes me so happy. And Kanade realizes that it's about spreading happiness, more or less, trying to help people. And so she got too focused on trying to win the competition and she should be focusing on just having fun. Well, like last episode, actually, when you think about it. But it was a cute moment between Kanade's parents, and you can see, why their love for each other and their love for sweets would affect Kanade's desire to bake and make something good.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate that.
Also, my favorite scene was at the end of the episode. So the cake was the monster for this episode, which was interesting because I thought only, musical instruments were going to be monsters. Mm-hmm. But Hibiki, it's all squished after they defeat the monster, and Hibiki's shoveling it into her mouth anyway, and Kanade's busy speaking with Hummy and her parents or whatever, and then she turns around, and Hibiki goes, more cake, please, and she goes, there is no more, you ate it!
I think there was a thing, too, about, Hibiki, don't eat that, it's all squished and nobody wants to eat it, and Hibiki's like, I'm gonna eat it anyways, which, by the way, could very easily be a setup in a rom-com sort of a situation, where the girl bakes a cake, but it gets ruined, and she's heartbroken, and the guy eats it anyways. I'm just saying, just gals being pals.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, I am ready to move on to tweets in a bottle if you are.
Absolutely. We've got a nice 5-course meal here, served with some thoughts from our listeners. We have a good soup. Make sure to swirl it. I believe that you swirl soup before you taste it. Let it sit on your tongue. Yes, very good. Dip just the tip of your pinky finger in to gauge its temperature.
Okay, so I have to ask, who raised you? Who taught you to eat?
Pete did. Hey guys,
Pete puts noodles on pizza.
That's in a cut part. That's in the mic test. People who are listening to this won't know that yet.
Anyway, some delicious thoughts that we are going to dip our pinkies in to test the temperature before tasting.
I think that's what people do when they eat. Yeah, absolutely. So, first off, the Koo King and Koo Queen of the Koo Kingdom is a mouthful.
This is from James, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, it's pretty much a given that if we're reading delicious thoughts, it's probably from James. But that's a good call out. This is a good episode to establish that you shouldn't force yourself to face things alone and that you have friends that support you. Also, you're not inadequate, Mari. This is for episode 2, by the way.
Now listen, if my friend had a magic pendant that allowed them to do superhero things, and then they broke it, and I had to pick up their slack, I wouldn't necessarily call them inadequate, but I think it's a reasonable feeling for Mari to have. Like, you kind of messed this up, and now you can't do your job.
Yeah, I suppose so. It's interesting because us as the viewers, we know that Mari isn't the protagonist. He's not the one who's going to defeat all the bad guys. That's going to be the Cures. And we also know that Mary is trying his best, and so when he's like, oh, I'm a loser, I'm inadequate, we want to be like, you're not. So I guess I see what you're saying, that from a technical standpoint, that yeah, he messed up the job and that sucks, but I think that maybe he was beating himself up a little bit too much, because through the power of friendship, anything is possible.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. And to be clear, I'm not saying that I feel like Mari is inadequate. I feel like it's reasonable for them to feel that way. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
James also commented on how Kome Kome is just sort of a pet now. That was the episode prior to Kome Kome going on her own errand and becoming a child. So.
Well, no, here's the thing I will really quickly say, and I mentioned this in the Discord, but James was asking, like, is that something new? Because last season, Karurun was kind of like a secret from the family, and I think I have a theory. If the fairy can pass as just a regular animal, it is okay. Healin' Good had Latte, and I believe that Go Princess had Pafu, who was allowed to, like, stay in the dorm and stuff, and those are all... they look like dogs. But if it's something like Mipple and Mepple, who are these weird creatures, like, those can't be seen, because someone would be like, that's not from this world.
What a weird cat!
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, I love that nobody knows what Kome Kome is. They always go, are you a dog or a cat? Why would you not guess fox?
I loved that moment in episode 3 when they met Kakone and they were trying to be like, have you seen a pink creature? Kind of looks like a fox, and Pam put her ears up like a triangle so she looked more fox-like. It was so good.
It was very cute.
On to James's thoughts from episode 3. Kome Kome and Pam Pam are cute. No wonder Yui wants to eat them up. They're just the perfect bite-sized... You couldn't eat Karurun.
Here's the thing. They keep picking these animals up like the food that they represent. She holds Kome Kome in a single hand like a rice ball, and she held Pam Pam in 2 hands like a sandwich. I'm very uncomfortable with this.
Is it technically murder to eat something that is food and wants to be eaten? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy had a cow that was like that. It would come up to you in the restaurant and be like, do you want to eat my flanks? Ooh, so fatty. And it was just like, this is weird.
Really quick aside, we never mentioned this. I was reading James's other thoughts, and this reminded me. I did not like the peppermill ubalzo. I did not like that
the hip thrust?
Yeah. Look, I'm just going to say it. It was firing pepper bombs from its wiener. And that's just not appropriate.
I think it was more from its belly button. It just has different proportions than humans, but it made me laugh both times we watched the episode, because we rewatched it so that we could refresh our memory of what happened. But like, it's funny, but it's also a little weird.
Absolutely.
Let me see, what else? James likes Kakone. He couldn't remember her name at first, and that is fine. We actually have to write them down, just in case we forget people's names in between different episodes. Eventually, it just becomes part of the vocabulary, but for now, it's still early in the series. And Yui doesn't make any attempt to hide the fact that she's like, hey, did you see a floating fox flying around here? She didn't I don't think she said floating, but like when Kakone mentioned, like, I think I saw something that was floating.
She
don't care.
She floated that way? Oh, good, you did see her.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like Yui secretly knows that this girl is going to join her on the battlefield next episode. You know, she has a little bit of like empathy, intuition when it comes to characters. Okay. James also noticed that her name is Ran. We did look it up during our break between the first half and second half of this episode. But he noticed that Ran's food is always getting ruined, like we did earlier in this episode. And I asked him, you know, hey, do you think that maybe like she'll think that she's cursed or something? And his theory is that Ran won't be able to taste good food until the end of the series, or not until all the recipes are back safe. I assume that once she finds out how the food fairies are being stolen in another episode or two, or not food fairies, recipes. I assume that she'll become a cure, she'll save the day, and then she'll eat delicious food. That'll be her primary motivation for fighting the bad guys, is I can't post pictures of delicious food if there is no delicious food.
Absolutely. Real quick note, James noted that the Boondaro gang are just huge dorks.
Yeah.
They give me minor Team Skull vibes from Pokemon. Like, we're playing it being criminals, but we're not really criminals, we're just hungry.
Or kind of Jesse and James from Team Rocket. Like, Team Rocket as a whole could be kind of sinister, but those two individually are a little goofy.
Absolutely. I feel so bad for Ran, though. Just continually. She seems so excited and enthusiastic about this food.
Yeah, absolutely. I do wonder, I think it would be interesting if we had a season where there was a non-cure character who was trying to investigate the pre-cure, and I'm sure we've had some version of that in other seasons, but could you imagine if it was like a season-long thing instead of just like a one-off episode? I think they had something like that in Healin' Good, where there was a character who was like taking pictures of the Healin' Good girls and be like, rah, 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 rah. But if there was like a detective who showed up like 2 or 3 times throughout the season, that would be great. And Ran could be that if she weren't already going to join the team.
Maybe she will be that, and when she discovers it is when she will become one.
Oh, okay, yeah, maybe.
I'm really excited for her debut onto the team. Like, she just seems like she'll be a lot of fun. She's very much the no thoughts, head empty, cure sparkle type.
Yes. Absolutely. The only thing that we have left is looking ahead to the future. So episode 4 of Delicious Party PreCure is going to be titled Growing Desire, ... Birth of Cure Spicy.
Do you remember earlier when I said I was on the Yui Fua Fui train?
Yes, absolutely.
I just feel like this season really said, we know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards. Growing desire. I mean, when you look at the way their meals were contrasted at the end of the episode, I wonder if it will be a desire for companionship more than anything else. But it is a funny word inherently.
Yeah, there's some words that just kind of sound like they belong in adult fanfic. You know, trembling, desire, passion, all of them can usually be used in those contexts as well. I think that, yeah, it's going to be, maybe right now she views food as like something that you have to eat. Like, oh yeah, if you want to live a normal life and like have enough energy to get through the day, you need to eat regular meals. But maybe it's more of an obligation, but then maybe now she'll discover the joy of cooking and the joy of sharing food. I think that makes the most sense.
Absolutely. Do you have any crack theories for me for next episode? Or just in general?
Okay. The growing desire does not refer to any women-loving women, not the Fui relationship. It's not even about Fua or Kokone discovering the joy of food. Growing desire is how Kokone will be sitting across the street from Pam Pam, and they'll keep stealing furtive glances at each other, thinking, I really want to go over and eat that little dog. And that's when Cure Spicy will be born.
Oh no! Oh gosh. I've got one.
Okay.
We kind of saw the boss of the Boondaroo gang in the background.
Oh yeah, we got a name for him. He's Godats. I think they mentioned him in the first episode, but I've definitely written him down now.
Godats gave me big badger vibes.
Yeah, there were like whiskers on like the corner of his face.
So I don't think he's a person. I think he's a badger. And I think the reason they are stealing all the recipes is because he can't cook with his little badger paws.
Siren can't hold a gun in her little kitty paws, and Godas can't hold utensils in his little badger paws.
He is tired of eating out of the trash. His time has come.
And that has been your
doot final thought. Outro goes here.
Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we hope that you enjoyed the meal.
Yum! Thank you all for joining us for another delicious plateful of
Cure of the What Now.
Please take a moment to rate and review wherever you get your podcasts from.
Or if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to leave a comment, a like, or lick that subscribe bell so you know when the new episodes are going up.
Did you just say lick it?
Well, yeah, we're baking delicious foods. It's a delicious party.
Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at Pirate Ghost Host. Please don't lick me.
Can you even lick a ghost? I'm on Twitter at Kotwin_pod.
KOTWN_pod.
Absolutely. And as always, the Discord link is in the Twitter bio and also in the YouTube description.
Come join us for weekly discussions, streams, and all of the PreCure your heart can handle. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yum. Or no, I'm full!